took that also, went to school. How did you go from doing hair to becoming a nurse?
Oh,
Totally opposite end of the spectrum.
that's an even longer story because actually my master's is in healthcare administration. So
Mm.
I started in healthcare administration and still was doing hair, working, in like the C suites of, big hospital chain. Then got a prestigious like fellowship, all these kind of things, and realized that healthcare administration wasn't for me. I got into healthcare because I wanted to affect access because I grew up without health insurance. Like my dad always straddled that line of making too much to qualify for state assistance, but not making enough to be able to afford insurance on his own. So we
Mm.
never had health insurance. And I grew up with asthma and sitting in the lobby of a community clinic for 5 hours just to be seen by a provider having an asthma attack, not being able to breathe is not fun. And so, I was like, gotta be a better way. And I'm never the one to lean on someone else for a solution. I want to be the solution to my problem because if I'm having a problem, so many other people are having it. So that's why I wanted to get into healthcare. And then I got into administration and saw it's really about numbers. It's not about the people. It's not about the things that I really cared about. And I wasn't really being treated fairly either. I mean, you think I look young now, but imagine I was 21 years old in the C suites, very knowledgeable with a master's degree, had experience because the whole time I was going through school, I also worked at this hospital organization in different levels, managing people and all this stuff, had all this experience, but never taken seriously. And also looked down upon because again, at the end of the day, I'm from West Oakland and I don't feel like I should be a brown noser. And that's in those kind of spaces, they want you to talk a certain way, look a certain way. And I didn't fit that mold. And so I was so fortunate to work with so many nurses that, had all this autonomy and were doing amazing things. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So at 25, and at that point, and this is going to give you context for this show that I'm just not, talking out the side of my ass. I have 5 houses at 25.
Oh,
I was technically
wait. Talk your shit. Talk it. Talk it.
right. I have 5 houses at 25. I was technically a millionaire by assets. And I was like, you know what? I thought I was going to be a millionaire when I was 30. I'm 25. I'm going to retire. That's all they needed to know. And I left and I actually went back to go to nursing school.
Okay. Okay. So that's kind of the abbreviated version.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to the topic of today,
Mm-hmm.
renting versus buying. And so you shared this post that got the smoke and you like the smoke. So maybe that's what a strategy I need to employ because sometimes I get no attention on social. So I just wonder, what am I doing wrong? But there you are glowing. All right, that messed up there.
Tell me something that you wish more people understood.
Now, if you didn't see what it says, let's run it back. And actually, I might get in trouble for the copyrighted music. So it says, tell me something you wish more people to know. Renting is not throwing money away, and buying a home isn't necessarily an investment. Right? So that got a lot of people up in arms. Mm-hmm. Again, let's get it again. Renting is not throwing money away, and buying a home, personal residence, is not necessarily an investment. And a lot of people got upset about this. I was like, she didn't say not to buy. She didn't say to buy. She didn't say not to rent. She didn't say to rent. It is saying like, there's no absolutes. But
right.
Then there was another post that I put up. Now, this one wasn't you. This was me in my own volition.
Versus a house. Reason being, right now in my life, no kids, just living with my girlfriend. There's no reason for me to worry about a house, have attention being taken away from the business. And first of all, a house is an investment that I don't want to make, is not a good investment that I don't want to make if it's not going to pay me. If I have to put this massive down payment on the house, continue to pay the mortgage, continue to pay the property tax, continue to pay the insurance, and have no money coming in, it is not worth it. To make money on your house, when you sell it after paying interest, insurance, taxes, it would have to go up 160% for you to even make any money most of the time.
The worst advice in the world is to follow and do what everybody else is doing just because everybody else is doing that same thing. At the end of the day, if you don't want to buy a house, that's fine. There's no shame in that. If you want to rent, that's fine. There's no shame in that. Whatever you need to do for yourself at this particular time is the right thing to do. And it's okay to do that.
Rather live in an apartment versus a house. Reason being, right now in my life, no kids, just living with my girlfriend. There's no reason for me to worry about a house, have attention being taken away from the business. And first of all, a house is an investment that I don't want to, is not a good investment
So,
that I don't want to make if it's not going to
people didn't like that. But
Of course, but it wasn't nothing but the truth.
I mean,
What?
when you break it down, when you go through it line by line, like this is a guy who knows what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to run a business. So why would he take his hard-earned money and put it into an illiquid asset that he can't use to further grow his business? Some people say it's dumb. I'm like, I don't think it is. And
But
then,
the rate of return on most businesses is gonna be so far superior to the rate of return on most investments, especially a house, where sometimes it can be negative.
well, for everybody who's like the successful businesses, right? Because we know a lot of businesses fail.
Yeah.
So I know somebody's gonna poke me and say, all businesses don't do that. All businesses aren't successful.
100%.
But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people, again, so I'm a nerd. Like I'm a really finance guy.
Mhm.
If you really go into the history of the housing market, you asked me a question today. The federal,
Yeah.
right? You said, what is backstopping, right? When it comes to mortgages, because the federal government is now going to guarantee payment of $1 million plus homes. The mortgage market, or excuse me, the real estate market is subsidized by the government. It wasn't always done like that. It wasn't always like that. I don't usually talk about that because it's boring and people don't
No,
care.
it's very interesting actually to me because, well, when I was looking at it, I was like confused because I was like, wait, like the average house in the Bay Area is like $1 million home. So like, how does that apply to us? Like,
Well,
so, mhm,
no, what I was going to say was I'll show the post.
mhm,
The Fannie and Freddie have a certain limit that they will guarantee or write mortgages for.
mhm.
And places like the Bay, LA, New York, Seattle, whatever, they have different kind of loans.
Okay.
But the government subsidizes real estate purchases, home purchases, for one reason and one reason only. They didn't always do this. They did it to stop the potential rise of communism. They didn't want us to become a communistic state. And so they believed that if people own their homes, not like in Russia or in Cuba and other quote unquote socialistic places, that people would have a more patriotic view of things. So real estate investment is a form of marketing for patriotism, for U.S. patriotism.
I
But a
mean,
lot of
that
people don't realize that.
makes a lot of sense because it ties into why people are so combative when you talk about like home ownership not being a form of investing, like your primary residence not being an investment. Like it, it like to me, it just clicked like, oh, like when something is so deeply ingrained, and I think like you for our community. Okay, here. For our community, I think it's like that as well because it's one of the only forms of assets that we were allowed to have, right? Like my
Well,
grand
well,
but at a cost, at a cost, but it was easier to get a mortgage than to get a brokerage account, to even get a bank account at some places. So, I'm speaking like in terms of like my grandfather's generation, my grandfather and my great uncle, like that's all they know is real estate investing. And
well, the reason
so
why I said well
mhm.
was that they couldn't even own property at one point.
I
Like when
mean,
you
my
go back,
grandfather's deeds in California says no blacks or Orientals on it
right,
still.
right,
Right. So I'm aware of that,
right.
definitely.
And it's not enforced everywhere, but it was enforced in most places. And people don't even realize that redlining basically formulated the hood or the ghetto as we know it right now. But
Yeah.
again, I don't want to go too deep. I don't know.
But that is super interesting, and I don't think that that's like nerdy. I think that that's like just facts. Like people need to understand that. Like I've never heard that, but it all makes sense because it plays into this narrative that we all have.